So, hello, my name is Anthony Boynton. I use he, they pronouns. This year, the Emily Taylor Center and the Office of Multicultural Affairs are partnering with The Raven to uplift the voices of Black women, femme, and non-binary writers by inviting Black women, femmes, and non-binary folks like me at KU to take part of what is the Free Black Women's Library Annual Reading Challenge. Today I'm going to be reading excerpts from Parable of the Sower. Hopefully my phone stays where it needs to stay so that reading can be advantageous. Excellent. I'm going to talk a little bit about my relationship to Octavia Butler, and then I'll read. Like I said, I won't be before you long. I hope that that's not a rhetorical lie, as it often is in church. Octavia Butler came to me in 2014. I took a course called Black Intellectual History. I took it with this professor named Dr. Huddle, and it was a history class. But a part of the course, he wanted to talk about Afrofuturism, and not lying already. Talk about Afrofuturism as a mode in discourse from which Black philosophers and Black intellectuals were doing work. It was actually very fascinating. And in that class, we read Octavia Butler's Kindred. For those of us who haven't read Kindred, Kindred is about 26-year-old Dana, who is being involuntarily transported from her 1970s home in California to the 1800s in Maryland to save and rescue her several times great-grandparents. It's what is called a neo-slave narrative. Octavia Butler is perhaps one of the most prolific writers of the last part of the 20th century. Not just outstandingly productive, but also the topics, the intent with which she writes is, I think I think it's safe to say that it's unparalleled in a lot of different ways. Anyone who is in love with science fiction, anyone who wants to see people where they are, who want to grow in their social consciousness, and who wants to read a good story, I think Octavia Butler is a good place to start. I came to Parable of the Sower a couple years later, in part because people began to liken Parable of the Sower to some of the things that we saw with the election of Trump. I'm just going to say that shit. Because of the ways that post-apocalypse happens through politics, through racial violence in this, and in some ways we're kind of what's the word? We kind of saw those things happen over the last few years. Octavia Butler has been called a prophet, and that can be up for discussion, I think. But what I do know is that she is prescient, that she has given us something to sit with. She's offered us a gift and a way to think about what we can do differently. I think Parable of the Sower is such an example of that, in part because what she's doing here is, there's a story about a young girl. It starts when she's 15, named Lauren, who's really trying to just figure out her life. She's the daughter of a preacher. And she is writing through what theology, what God, what life, what spirit means for her. And it's like, what does God mean in a post-apocalyptic world? I think this is a story that will perhaps give you some insight to what God, what spirit, what universe can mean. This was written in the early 1990s, but it takes place in the 2020s. So it might be apt for us to read it in a few different ways. There's no better place to start but the beginning. So let's start there. If you have a copy. I literally am at the beginning. I'll give page numbers throughout. I'm going to read from 3 sections. The first, we kind of just get a hint of who Lauren, who July 20th. July 20th is her birthday. At the moment, I can't remember what comes after Cancer, no tea, no shade. But that would be her sign, and that I think there's some real realities there for her. Lauren Olamina's Earth Seed reads as follows in the beginning. In 2024, Prodigy is, at its essence, adaptability and persistent, positive obsession. Without persistence, what remains is an enthusiasm of the moment. Without adaptability, what remains can be channeled into destructive fanaticism. Without positive obsession, there is nothing at all. From Earthseed, The Books of the Living, by Lauren Olamina. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. Saturday, July 20th, 2024. I had my recurring dream last night. I guess I should have expected it. It comes to me when I struggle, when I twist in on my own personal hook and try to pretend that nothing unusual is happening. It comes to me when I try to be my father's daughter. Today is our birthday, my 15th, my father's 55th. Tomorrow I'll try to please him and the community and God. So last night I dreamed a reminder that it's all a lie. I think I need to write about the dream because this particular lie bothers me so much. I'm learning to fly, to levitate myself. No one is teaching me. I'm just learning on my own, little by little, dream lesson by dream lesson. Not a very subtle image, but a persistent one. I've had many lessons, and I'm better at flying than I used to be. I trust my ability more, but I'm still afraid, and I can't quite control my directions yet. I lean forward toward the doorway. It's a doorway like the one between my room and the hall. It seems to be a long way from me, but I lean toward it, holding my body stiff and tense. I let go of whatever I'm grasping, whatever has kept me from rising or falling so far. And I lean into the air, straining upward, not moving upward, but not quite falling down either. Then I do begin to move, as though to slide on the air, drifting a few feet above the floor, caught between terror and joy. I drift toward the doorway. Cool, pale light glows from it, and then I slide a little to the right, and a little more. I can see that I'm going to miss the door, and I hit the wall beside it, but I can't stop or turn. I drift away from the door, away from the cool glow, into another light. The wall before me is burning. Fire has sprung out from nowhere, has eaten in through the wall, and has begun to reach toward me, reach for me. The fire spreads. I drift into it. It blazes all around me. I thrash and scramble, and I try to swim back out of it, grabbing handfuls of air and of fire, kicking, burning. Darkness. Perhaps I awake a little. I do sometimes when fire swallows me. That's bad. I wake up all the way, and I can't get back to sleep. I try, but I've never been able to. This time, I don't wake up all the way. I fade into the second part of the dream, the part that's ordinary and real, the part that did happen years ago when I was little, though at the time it didn't seem to matter. Darkness. Darkness brightening. Stars. Stars casting their cool, pale, glinting light. We couldn't see so many stars when I was little, my stepmother says to me. She speaks in Spanish, her own first language. She stands still and small, looking up at the broad sweep of the Milky Way. She and I have gone out after dark to take the washing down from the clothesline. The day has been hot as usual, and we both like the cool darkness of early night. There's no moon, but we can see it very well. The sky is full of stars. The neighborhood wall is massive, a looming presence nearby. I see it as a crouching animal, perhaps about to spring, more threatening than protective. But my stepmother is there, and she isn't afraid. I stay close to her. I'm 7 years old. I look up at the stars and the deep black sky. Why couldn't you see the stars? I ask her. Everyone can see them. I speak in Spanish too, as she's taught me. It's an intimacy somehow. City lights, she says. Lights, progress, growth, all those things were too hot. We're too hot and too poor to bother with anymore. She pauses. When I was your age, my mother told me that the stars, the few stars we could see, were windows into heaven. Windows for God to look through, to keep an eye on us. I believed her for almost a year. My stepmother hands me an armload of my youngest brother's diapers. I take them, walk back toward the house where she has left her big wicker laundry basket and pile the diapers atop the rest of the clothes. The basket is full. I look to see that my stepmother is not watching me, that I let myself fall backward onto the soft mound of stiff, clean clothes. For a moment, the fall is like floating. I lie there looking up at the stars. I pick out some of the constellations and name the stars that make them up. I've learned them from an astronomy book that belonged to my father's mother. I see the sudden light streak of a meteor flashing westward across the sky. I stare after it, hoping to see another. Then my stepmother calls me and I go back to her. There are city lights now, I say to her. They don't hide the stars. She shakes her head. There aren't anywhere near as many as there were. Kids today have no idea what a blaze of light cities used to be, and not that long ago. I'd rather have the stars, I say. The stars are free, she shrugs. I'd rather have the city lights back myself, the sooner the better. But right now we can afford the stars. That was the first chapter. When I tell you she knows how to start a book, child. Windows into heaven. You know, I am going to read a small section out of chapter 7. This is the second out of 3 sections that I'll read today. Chapter 7. This is, to give some context, particularly for folks who might have come in when after I kind of gave a little premise. Lauren Olamina is a teenager here who is trying to figure out what religion, God, spirituality, life means for her. And this portion of chapter 7 is when she begins to really figure out what this is for her. She will call it Earth Seed. So sections of what I have already read and what I will read are sections from this book that she later writes that is her Bible, called Earth Seed, the Book of the Living. So yes. So this first section is from Earth Seed, and then I'll read what is essentially a diary entry from her when she talks about making Earth Seed and finding it. Chapter 7. We are all God's seed, but no more or less so than any other aspect of the universe. God's seed is all there is, all that changes. Earth seed is all that spreads. Earth life to new earths. The universe is God's seed. Only we are Earth seed. And the destiny of Earthseed is to take root among the stars. Earthseed, the books of the living. And I'm sorry, I didn't give a page number. This is page 77 in my text. Saturday, April 26th, 2025, a year later. Sometimes naming a thing, giving it a name, or discovering its name helps one to begin to understand it. Knowing the name of a thing and knowing what that thing is forgives me even more a handle on it. The particular God is change belief system that seems right to me will be called Earthseed. I've tried to name it before, failing that. I've tried to leave it unnamed. Neither effort has made me comfortable. Name plus purpose equals focus for me. Definitely speaking into like some of her like Leo right here, I think. Well, today I found the name. Found it while I was weeding the back garden and thinking about the ways that plants seed themselves, wind-born, animal-born, water-born, far from their parent plants. They have no ability at all to travel great distances under their own power, and yet they do travel. Even they don't have to just sit in one place and wait to be wiped out. There are islands thousands of miles from anywhere, the Hawaiian Islands, for example, and Easter Island, where plants seeded themselves and grew long before any humans arrived. Earthseed. I am Earthseed. Anyone can be. And someday, I think there will be a lot of us, and I think we'll have to seed ourselves farther and farther from this dying place. I've never felt that I was making any of this up. Not the name, Earthseed, not any of it. I mean, I've never felt that it was anything other than real. Discovery rather than invention. Exploration rather than creation. I wish I could believe it was all supernatural, that I'm getting messages from God. But then I don't believe in that kind of God. All I do is observe and take notes, trying to put things down in ways that are as powerful, as simple, and as direct as I feel them. I can never do that. I keep trying, but I can't. I'm not good enough as a writer or a poet or whatever it is I need to be. I don't know what to do about that. It drives me frantic sometimes. I'm getting better, but so slowly. The thing is, even with my writing problems, every time I understand a little more, I wonder why it's taken me so long. Why there was ever a time when I didn't understand a thing so obvious and real and true. Here's the only puzzle in it all, the only paradox, or bit of illogic or circular reasoning or whatever it should be called. Why is the universe? To shape God. Why is God? To shape the universe. I can't get rid of it. I've tried it, or I've tried to change it and dumped it, but I can't. I cannot. It feels like the truest thing I've ever written. It's as mysterious and as obvious as any other explanation of God or the universe I've ever read, except that to me, the others feel inadequate at best. All the rest of Earthseed is explanation. What God is, what God does, what we are, what we should do, what we can't help doing. Consider, whether you're a human being, an insect, a microbe, or a stone, this verse is true. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. Like I was saying before, the social media gods interrupted us. Lauren fulfills the promise that she makes in her diary in 2025, 2 years later, almost to the date. and also during Leo season. And actually, most of this novel takes place during Leo season and Capricorn season, and a little bit of Virgo. That might be important to some of you and important to others. Whatever it does for you is what it does for you. This is from the latter third of the novel. At this point, Lauren has left her community in Southern California and is traveling north. She's taking various highways, sometimes by herself, sometimes with compatriots, and it's very dangerous along these highways. There's even a part where she has to redress in a number of ways. I'm not going to give it away, but she has to redress herself in a few different ways because of so many potential dangers. But this happens along the journey. Sunday, August 15th, 2027. This is 2 years after she finds the name Earthseed. I think Travis Charles Douglas is my first convert. Zara Moss is my second. Zara has listened as the days have passed and as Travis and I went on arguing off and on. Sometimes she asked questions or pointed out what she saw as inconsistencies. After a while, she said, "I don't care about no outer space. You can keep that part of it. But if you want to put together some kind of community where people look out for each other and don't have to take being pushed around, I'm with you." I've been talking to Natividad, her child, and I don't want to live the way she had to. I don't want to live the way my mama had to either. I wondered how much difference there was between Natividad's former employer, who treated her as though he owned her, and Richard Moss, who purchased young girls to be part of his harem. It was all a matter of personal feeling, no doubt. Natividad had later resented her employer. Zara had accepted and perhaps loved Richard Moss. Earthseed is being born right here on Highway 101. And that portion of 101 was once El Camino Real, the royal highway of California's Spanish past. Now it's a highway, a river of the poor, a river flooding north. I've come to think that I should be fishing that river even as I follow its current. I should watch people not only to spot those who might be dangerous to us, but to find those few like Travis and Natividad who would join us and be welcome. And then what? Find a place to squat and take over? Act as a kind of gang? No, not quite a gang. We aren't gang types. I don't want gang types with their need to dominate, rob, or terrorize, and yet we might have to dominate. We might have to rob to survive, and even terrorize to scare off or kill enemies. We'll have to be very careful how we allow our needs to shape us. But we must have arable land, a dependable water supply, and enough freedom from attack to let us establish ourselves and grow. It might be possible to find such an isolated place along the coast and make a deal with the inhabitants. If there are a few more of us, and if we are better armed, we might provide security in exchange for living room. We might also provide education plus reading and writing services to adult illiterates. There might be a market for that kind of thing. So people, children, and adults are illiterate these days, so many of us. We might be able to do it. Grow our own food, grow ourselves and our neighbors into something brand new. Into Earthseed. Yes. I'm going to listen to whatever is in the atmosphere that says to read something, one last thing that's short, especially since we got cut off. I don't think I have any of my students on call. This is a new copy of Parable of the Sower. Normally when I teach from various novels, it's beat up buked and also scorned. So I don't have as many of my notes. But I think that there's another section right in here that I can read. Yeah. 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 2 sections out. Okay. This is from chapter 19. This is directly after. Changes. The galaxies move through space. The stars ignite, burn, age, cool, evolving. God is change. God prevails. Earthseed, the books of the living. This is from Friday, August 27th, 2027, from Notes Expanded from Sunday, August 29th. Earthquake today. It hit early this morning just as we were beginning today's walk, and as it was a strong one, the ground itself gave a low grating rumble like a buried thunder. It jerked and shuddered and then seemed to drop. It sure did drop, though, and I didn't know how far. Once the shaking stopped, everything looked the same, except for sudden patches of dust thrown up here and there in the brown hills around us. Several people screamed or shouted during the quake. Some burdened by heavy packs, lost their footing and fell into the dirt or onto broken asphalt. Travis, with Dominic on his chest and a heavy pack on his back, was almost one of these. He stumbled, staggered, and managed somehow to catch himself. The baby, unhurt, but jolted by the sudden shaking, began to cry, adding to the noise of 2 older children walking nearby, the sudden talking of almost everyone, and the gasp of an old man who had fallen during the quake. I put aside my usual suspicions and went to see whether the old man was all right. Not that I could have done much to help him, but if he hadn't been, I retrieved his cane for him. It had landed beyond his reach and helped him up. He was as light as a child, thin, toothless, and frightened of me. I gave him a pat on the shoulder and sent him on his way, checking when his back was turned to see if he hadn't lifted anything. The world was full of thieves. Old people and young kids were often pickpockets. Nothing missing. Another man nearby smiled at me, an older, but not yet old black man who still had his teeth, oh bless the Lord, and who pushed his belongings in twin saddlebags hanging from a small, sturdy metal frame cart. He didn't say anything, but I liked to smile. I smiled back, and I remembered that I was supposed to be a man. I wondered whether he had seen through my disguise. Not that it mattered. I went back to my group where Zara and Octavia were comforting Dominic and Harry as they were picking up something from the roadside. I went to Harry and saw that he found a filthy rag knotted into a small, tight ball around something. Harry tore the rotten cloth and a roll of money fell out of his hands, $100 bills, 2 or 3 dozen of them. Put it away, I whispered. He pushed the money into deep pants pockets. New shoes, he whispered, good ones and other things. Do you need anything? I had promised to buy him a new pair of shoes as soon as we reached a dependable store. His were worn out. Not another idea occurred to me. If you have enough, I whispered, buy yourself a gun. I'll still get your shoes, you get a gun. And then I spoke to the others, ignoring his surprise. Is everyone all right? Everyone was. Dominique was happy again, riding now on his mother's back and playing with her hair. Zara was readjusting her pack, and Travis had gone on and was taking a look at the small community ahead. This was farm country. We passed through nothing for days except small, dying towns, withering roadside communities and farms, some working, some abandoned and growing weeds. There were more shots behind us. Single shots, then even an uneven crackling of an exchanged fire, and then unmistakable chatter for automatic fire, weapons fire. We walked faster, hoping that we were beyond the range of anything aimed in our direction. Shit, Zara whispered, keeping up with me. I should have known that this was going to happen. People out here in the middle of nowhere got to be tough. I don't think their toughness will get them through this day, though, I said, looking back. There was much more smoke rising now, and it was rising more from more than one place. Distant shouts and screams mixed with the gunfire. Stupid place to put a naked little community. They should have hidden their homes away in the mountains where there were few strangers and where they couldn't see them. That was something for me to keep in mind. All the people this community all the people of this community could do now was take a few of their tormentors with them. Tomorrow, the survivors of this place will be on the road with scraps of their belongings on their backs. It's odd, but I don't think anyone on the road would have thought of attacking that community en masse like that if the earthquake or something had not started a fire. One small fire was the weakness that gave scavengers permission to devastate the community, which they were no doubt doing now. The shooting could scare some away, kill or wound others, and make the remainder very angry. If the people of the community chose to live in such a dangerous place, they should have set up overwhelming defenses, a line of explosive charges and incendiaries, that kind of thing. The only power that's strong, that destructive, that sudden, would scare attackers off, would drive them away in panic, more overwhelming than the greed and the need that had drawn them in the first place. If the people of the community were without explosive, they should have grabbed their money and their kids and run like crazy the moment they saw the horde coming. They knew the hills were better than migrating scavengers could. They should have had hiding places already prepared, or at least been able to lose themselves among the hills while scavengers were ransacking their homes. But they had done none of this. And now vast, thick clouds of smoke rose behind us, drawing in even more scavengers. Whole world's gone crazy, a voice near me said. And I knew before I looked that it was the man with the saddlebagged cart. We'd slowed down a little, looking back, and he had caught up. He too had had the sense not to try to go scavenging in the little community. He didn't look like a man who scavenged. His clothes were dirty and ordinary, but they fit him well, and they looked almost new. His jeans were still dark blue, still creased down the legs. His red, short-sleeved shirt still had all of its buttons. He wore expensive walking shoes and had not long ago, an expensive professional haircut. What was he doing out here on the road, pushing a cart? A rich pauper? Or at least a once rich pauper. He had short, full salt and pepper beard, and I decided I liked his looks as much as I had before. What a handsome old man. But had the world gone crazy? I hope that you have enjoyed my reading from Parable of the Sower. Please follow the Emily Taylor Center and the Office of Multicultural Affairs, along with, you can follow me if you want, but also follow the Free Black Women's Library on Instagram. Thank you all so much for joining me. I had such a wonderful time, despite the various technological glitches and whatnot that were my fault. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care.